Thanks to COVID-19 and global lockdowns, countries are collectively spending more than $7 trillion in economic stimulus packages to keep their respective economies intact.
Unprecedented $2 trillion spending package.
$275 billion vision for Japan.
Malaysia has unveiled a $58 billion package to shield the people and businesses from the impact of COVID-19.
Malaysia's economic stimulus amounts to a hefty 260 billion ringgit. So how exactly are these costly packages meant to save us from what experts are calling the deepest recession since the Great Depression? But first, let me tell you a story. This is Makcik Kia. She sells pisang goreng at her roadside stall and is a proven storytelling device.
Contohnya, Makcik Kia kita.
Lots of people buy her snacks. Each of her customers exchanges money for banana fritters, giving her profit. Transactions like these, where one party offers a product or service and another buys it, are happening all the time. And these transactions are often interconnected. For example, Makcik Kia buys bananas from a farmer. The farmer buys farming equipment from a store, who buys it from a manufacturer, not to mention the many people who exchange their labor for a salary. This is what we call an economy. Millions of these interconnected transactions, big and small, all over the world, give everyone involved the means to put food on the table. When one transaction is disrupted, say if the farmer was unable to sell bananas to Makcik Kia because his crops failed, a small portion of the economy is affected. When a big enough disruption comes along, let's say a global pandemic leading to movement restrictions on large portions of the population, it could lead to mass unemployment and sudden poverty. So governments try to lessen the effects of the disruption on the economy through economic stimulus packages.
Every time a country is experiencing an economic crisis, it implements something that is called a stimulus package. Okay? They attempt to revive the economy. Usually the policymakers, they have two different kind of instruments that constitute the base for a stimulus package. One is monetary policy and one is fiscal policy.
Monetary policy is set by the independent central bank of a country, which in Malaysia is Bank Negara. And they can do things like adjusting interest rates and changing the supply of money that's in circulation. Fiscal policy is set by the government and includes things like adjusting government spending, changing tax rates, or even giving out money. Whether monetary or fiscal, these stimulus policies usually work by making money or credit available, which allows all these little transactions to continue happening. For example, the government might lower interest rates as a form of economic stimulus. This makes it easier for Uncle Fu's farm to take a loan, so he can invest in better farming equipment, which helps him stay in business and continue supplying to Makcik Kia. One of the most direct methods is by giving out cash to consumers.
So consumer spending is an essential component of the economy. So when we have a reduction in consumer spending, and this could be due to, say, the loss of employment or the loss of income, or because people have to stay at home, then you will see some kind of contraction in demand on the firm side. And if, let's say, this is prolonged and the crisis worsen, then firms would have to take cost-cutting measures, which would include different forms of labor reduction, which includes retrenchment. And of course, retrenchment means unemployment, and unemployment means lower levels of income for people, and then that would lead to a reduction in consumer spending.
When consumers have more cash, more people can buy pisang goreng, and all these transactions can happily continue. Usually, this form of fiscal stimulus is targeted at people with urgent needs, as they are more likely to spend that money immediately and give the economy a boost. Those who are more comfortable are unlikely to change their spending habits, which is why welfare-like handouts are often a big part of economic stimulus plans. The COVID-19 pandemic and the subsequent movement restrictions have experts predicting an unprecedented global economic recession. In Malaysia's case, our GDP is expected to contract by 2.6% in 2020. Our unemployment rates could increase to 4%, resulting in almost 1 million Malaysians losing their jobs. And we're not alone.
6.6 million Americans filed for unemployment benefits last week.
The closure of many non-essential businesses in Australia led to an estimated 1 million people losing their jobs overnight.
The unemployment rate has spiked to 24% after the lockdown.
We are observing injection of money, both with monetary policy and with fiscal policy. All this flooding of money into the economic system will not be without consequences. We will have an inflationary pressure, so the risk that prices will go up from one side. The other side is that artificial stimulus of the economy may bring into existence economic activities that otherwise would never exist. And in the long run, these businesses would be unsustainable. Prolonged injection of money in the system can create the preconditions for a bigger and more systemic economic crisis, like it happened when Easy Credit tried to cure the dot-com crisis in 2001, and it created the condition for the housing bubble.
2 weeks into our MCO, Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin announced the Prihatin Rakyat Economic Stimulus Package, valued at 260 billion ringgit, which in proportion to GDP is amongst the largest in the world, as it amounts to 17% of our GDP. They include initiatives like one-off cash handouts, special allowances for frontliners, deferment of loans and income tax payments, discounts on utility bills, and wage subsidies. This is not the first time Malaysia has implemented a stimulus package.
Not in generations has Wall Street absorbed the number of body blows it took today.
The American financial system is rocked to its foundation as top Wall Street institutions topple under a mountain of debt.
The last major stimulus package that we had would be during the global financial crisis in 2008 and 2009, where I think the government pumped in a total of about 60 billion in terms of the package, and that works out to about 9% of the GDP at that time.
Research has shown that these measures played a vital role in cushioning Malaysia's economy during the 2008 global financial crisis. But while you can look at past crises for lessons, it's difficult to do so with one that's spawned by a pandemic.
This economic crisis is very unique because it's the first economic crisis that doesn't depend on structural economic problems, but it is totally induced by external factors. First of all, the virus itself, but then the real amplifier of the crisis was the lockdown that put business at a halt.
Some people have used the analogy that this is like a medically induced coma, where we're going to need to be on life support in the meantime. We have to think in terms of a protection strategy at this point to preserve the productive potential of the economy and also to prevent economic linkages from falling apart.
While the measures announced by the government do try to keep Malaysians employed and there are targeted handouts, the longer the MCO stretches on, the harder it will be to keep these economic linkages intact.
Most of the measures introduced are meant to deal with more short-term issues. Official numbers coming from Bank Negara shows that the economy will contract for this entire year, meaning to say that the pandemic will actually take a toll on the economy, not just in the short term, but also in the medium to slightly long term. Really, we need to think about more medium-term measures for at least up to a year. What kind of medium-term measures that we should put in place depends also on what exit strategy that we take now after the MCO. Because at the end of the day, I think the economic measures have to complement the public health strategies that will be put in place later on. Even with post-MCO, if we can resume economic life, it will be at the partial level. That means it's not a full recovery because we still have social and physical distancing. I think that the post-COVID-19 world that we will see compared to the world that we have understood just a few months ago will be very different. So I think in terms of some of the fundamental assumptions that we have about the economy and the kind of strategies that we need to put in place to drive the economy forward, I think all this will require fundamental rethinking.
A little message from the R.AGE family. We hope everyone is staying safe and healthy and at home with their families for this MCO. Goodbye.